Bryce Young looking like he just might be the quarterback of the future for the Carolina Panthers. The Dallas Cowboys winning games they've got no damn business winning, messing up their draft slot. Yeah, that happened this past Sunday. And the New York Giants and the Las Vegas Raiders sitting in a spot where they may not have to trade up at all to get their quarterbacks of the future. We got a lot to talk about. 2025 mock draft right now. Let's get it. All right, we got the PFF mock draft board pulled up, and we sort of know what the team needs are based on the conversation that we had a few weeks ago. Just saw these teams play this past weekend. What we're not going to do in this stream for this mock draft, we're not going to do any trades. Let's just draft 1 through 32, talk about the team needs, the players, the fits, what could happen, and what we're seeing right now play out on the NFL field. That sort of has changed this mock from last week to this week, but there are no changes at the top. The Jacksonville Jaguars still currently hold the number 1 overall pick. And this team needs quite a bit. They need offensive line help for Trevor Lawrence. They hit big on wide receiver Brian Thomas last year. You've got Tyson Campbell as one of the better defensive backs in the NFL, but the ability to draft Travis Hunter, number 1 overall, if the Jacksonville Jaguars keep that pick, seems like a pretty simple selection. Get the best player in the draft class, somebody that can play both ways at the next level, primarily potentially at the cornerback position. They wouldn't need him to be an all-world receiver with BTJ and Christian Kirk in the building. Really love the fit of Travis Hunter in Jacksonville, which leads us to the number 2 overall pick, the New York Giants on the clock at number 2. They need a quarterback. They released Daniel Jones, which was sort of surprising to see them completely move on from Daniel Jones. So we know that's going to be a position of need. Free agent class at the QB position, a bunch of bridge guys, nobody to build around. So the question is, do they go with Jalen Milroe, who has sort of fallen flat on his face since the big rushing performance against LSU? You've got Cam Ward out of Miami, Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. These are the big 2 quarterbacks, in my opinion, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. This is a mock where I do think the New York Giants, they take Cam Ward at number 2. Pick 102, Cam Ward going to play with Malik Neighbors, going to be potentially playing with the new head coach, Brian Daboll. There's a lot of stuff going on between Malik Neighbors and Brian Daboll right now. Cam Ward, is he an upgrade over Daniel Jones? I think a lot of people say yes. The offensive line is still a problem. Getting Andrew Thomas back would be big for the Giants. So Cam Ward going number 2 overall to the New York Giants, their signal caller of the future, which leads the Raiders here at number 3. They need quite a bit, but quarterback being their biggest need. And this would be a spot where I think all parties would be quite happy if they were able to have the chance to select Shedeur Sanders here at number 3. The connection between Shedeur and the Las Vegas Raiders is his owner, Tom Brady. A lot of those connections starting to heat up. Deion Sanders, his dad, coach of Colorado, already came out to say he would love for his son to play for Coach Antonio Pierce. Tom Brady, that Raiders organization, in the bright lights of Las Vegas, like to pick a Shedeur Sanders right here to the Las Vegas Raiders at 3, leaving the New England Patriots on the clock at pick 4. And Drake Mays played pretty well this season in relief of Jacoby Brissett. Offensive line is being held together with duct tape and actually scotch tape. It's not even duct tape. It is scotched, plain white Christmas wrapping paper tape. They're holding that offensive line together. They can always upgrade the wide receiver position, but there are going to be some free agent wide receivers come available. Right here at pick 4, I think there are a couple of directions the New England Patriots can go. Upgrading that pass catcher for Drake May, while a priority, I think that is something they can address in free agency. You've got to be able to build around and protect your young quarterback. So you see a lot of mocks putting a offensive lineman in here for the New England Patriots. I'm not going to give them a offensive lineman this high at pick 4. I want a transcendent player, somebody that can impact the game on whatever respective position they play at. And while he's been banged up a little bit this season, I hope people don't forget how good Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, is. You look at his size, 6'2", 202 pounds. He's got that dominant outside, shut down a number 1 wide receiver prototype frame. I know they have Christian Gonzalez on one side, but the opportunity and potential to draft Will Johnson with a defensive-minded head coach and Gerard Mayo, you've got your 2 bookend cornerbacks of the future in a division that right now still has Mike McDaniel, the Miami Dolphins. You see what the Buffalo Bills are doing on the offensive side of the ball, and the way the Jets are currently constructed with Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, you've got to make sure that defensive side of the ball is secure. I think Will Johnson here at pick number 4, when it's all said and done, I do believe that Will Johnson is going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Pairing him up with Christian Gonzalez maybe a pick that a lot of people aren't expecting. You want the wide receiver, you want to tackle. I'm just not taking Will Campbell this high in this mock. So Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, goes to New England at pick 4, which leaves the Carolina Panthers on the clock at the 105 spot in an interesting position. PFF says that their team needs are a quarterback, a wide receiver, an edge rusher, and a linebacker. I do not believe they are in quarterback territory. In the last mock, Carolina was picking a little bit lower, lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, giving them a better pick, and I gave them Abdul Carter. I think replacing Brian Burns with Abdul Carter would make a ton of sense. I believe that Carter, right out the gate, is a walking 6 to 10 sack kind of rookie impact type player on the edge. But I love what we're seeing out of Bryce Young and Dave Canales in this offense. And when you saw how much better Bryce Young has played with a veteran wide receiver like Adam Thielen in the building, and he's not going to be there much longer. I think upgrading the pass catcher position, giving Bryce Young a big outside wide receiver to throw to. I like what Leggett is doing, his development as well. But you can't have David Moore being your top target in an offense. Really like Jatavian Sanders, the tight end out of Texas, but right here, the opportunity to really upgrade this offense with, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in this class, Ted McMillan. Big, old school prototype type wide receiver that can move like a player much smaller than 6'5", 212 pounds. Ted McMillan to Carolina at pick 5. Love it. Makes a ton of sense for the Panthers. Would be a great fit in pairing for Bryce Young. And we can address some of the edge rusher positions. I mean, PFF's got players like James Pierce mocked in the second round. You can find some pass rush help, some interior defensive line help, round 2, round 3 of this draft. You're not going to find another Ted McMillan in the second or third. Tennessee picking at the 6th spot. A lot of people want a quarterback for Tennessee. Build around Will Levis. Build around Will Levis. I know it's not pretty. We saw him get a big victory against the Houston Texans. Build around Will Levis. Give him some protection. Give him some help. The defense is solid in Tennessee, but offensively, this team has got to get better around Will Levis. This is a team that needs offensive line help in the worst way. Their offensive line is bad. You want to surround Will Levis with talented players. Had Ted McMillan been on the board, I do think that would be a spot to potentially address the wide receiver spot. But with him off the board, not as high on Luther Burden, and I don't think there's another wide receiver that we need to draft this high right now. You go with tried and true Will Campbell, left tackle out of LSU. Pair him up front with this offensive line. They got Peter Skoronski a couple of years ago. Will Campbell in Tennessee. I think that they were very much in on Joe Alt until the Los Angeles Chargers selected him. Here's a chance to get a bookend tackle to help protect your quarterback. Will Campbell at 6 to the Tennessee Titans. Jets are on the clock at pick 7, and they can go in so many different directions. Rumors 1 week removed from Aaron Rodgers' latest is he wants to continue to play, but potentially not on the Jets. There's all kinds of turmoil. You're just trying to get good quality players if you're the Jets. Edge rusher is always a need for every single team. They've got Will McDonald there. You've got Quinn Williams that can play on the outside. Mason Graham is a potential possibility inside for the Jets as well. But Abdul Carter, his ability to affect the game and change the game from the edge, you can't have too many of these guys. AFC East, you've got to chase around Josh Allen. You've got to ruin the timing of Mike McDaniel's offense. And Drake May looks like an ascending player in New England. Abdul Carter to the Jets, maybe not the primary need of this team, but to get a player of his caliber right here at 7. We're going to give the Jets some pass rushing help with Abdul Carter at pick 7. At 108, the Cleveland Browns are on the clock. They need a quarterback. They need a running back, a wide receiver, and a tackle. Offensive line help, positions of need for the Cleveland Browns. And they are in need or in good company because Kelvin Banks is on the clock. You have Wyatt Millum, Josh Simmons, Ariante Irsay here at the tackle at Minnesota. There are a lot of good tackles that Cleveland can upgrade their position with. Big Cam Williams out of Texas as well. But you just kind of look at BPA and what the board is shaking down to look like. You've got Myles Garrett, adding a Mason Graham on the interior of that defensive line to help free up some things for Myles Garrett on the outside. You've got Ashton Genty, the running back, Malachi Starks, Luther Burden, Nick Scoutron. But I do think that this is a spot where Cleveland, if they are going to rebuild the right way through the trenches, not reach for a quarterback here at pick 8. I'm not going to give them Jalen Milroe. Let's build the trenches. Let's start with the trenches And let's go with the offensive side of the ball. Kelvin Banks, big offensive tackle out of Texas, 6'4", 320 pounds. You look at him on the season, only giving up 4 sacks over 3 seasons of starting ball, 84.4 grade, significantly improved this year. Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle out of Texas. Come on down. You are a Cleveland Brown, which leaves New Orleans on the clock. Pick 9. They need offensive line help. They need D-line help. Mason Graham sitting here as the 3rd overall player according to PFF. Mason Graham, just a dog in the middle. Just 89.8 grade this year, 90 grade last year, and an 80 overall PFF grade in his true freshman season. We talked about how big the offensive tackle is, 6'3", 320 pounds, and can move. New Orleans has got to rebuild. Rebuild on the defensive line. Cam Jordan is not getting any younger. Mason Graham, you are a New Orleans Saint. Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock at pick 10. They need a wide receiver with T. Higgins pending his pending transition in free agency. They need defensive line help, although they've got the leading sack leader or one of the leading sack leaders in the NFL this season. What will the Bengals do? Protect Joe Burrow, get after the passer. What do you have? Where are areas that they can improve on? And I think it's everywhere, everywhere. Nick Scoutron out of Texas A&M, edge rusher. You pair him up with Trey Hendrickson, might have a nice, nasty combination on the edge for Cincinnati. Luther Burden, maybe putting him next to Jamar Chase, a different type of wide receiver. And you still have Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State, where a lot of people are like, Cincinnati, draft a running back. I do not think they take a running back here. I do think that they would opt for the defensive side of the ball or help for Joe Burrow, keeping him upright. With Nick Scoutron on the board out of Texas A&M, we're going to roll with him. 27 hurries, 4 sacks, 2 hits. This is a big boy, 6'4", 285 pounds. Help improve that defense. Get after the quarterbacks in that division. Lamar Jackson. You've got things going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Russell Wilson. Nick Scoutron out of Texas A&M. You are a Cincinnati Bengal at pick 10, which leaves the Dallas Cowboys on the clock at 11. They need a running back, D-line, linebacker, hell, every position the Dallas Cowboys need it all. Every single one. And I know a lot of people are looking at Ashton Jeanty right here. You just don't draft running backs this high. And in this 2025 class, let's go to the RB position. And I'm just going to give you my quick analysis on all these running backs. Jeanty is incredible. Probably the best running back prospect we've seen come through since Saquon Barkley or Marion Hampton. Massive, massive, massive running back, 6'1", over 220 pounds. Could catch the ball, run between the tackles. Dane Brugler's already said probably a dozen running backs get drafted between round 2 and 4. Caleb Johnson, big boy out of Iowa, my current RB3. You've got the 2 running backs out of Ohio State, Judkins and Hendo. Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. Ollie Gordon, one of my personal favorites who's not even ranked that high. According to PFF, you got Woody Marks, Devin Neal, Trevor Etienne, Jonah Coleman, DJ Giddens. This class is loaded. You do not need to take a running back. You damn sure don't need to take one inside the top 10. Not this year. So with the Dallas Cowboys needing a little bit of everything, let's take a look at the board and the best players available. I would love Malachi Starks on this defense, but it's not a necessity. They don't need a safety in round 1. Looking at the board, I think you've got to go with the best available player to help impact this team. And I do think here at the 11th spot, although Luther Burden is not my personal choice for the second wide receiver off of the board, I think his skill set very much pairs and marries well with what CeeDee Lamb does. Having Burden and CeeDee Lamb on the same offense, it would be a dynamic offense, another weapon for Dak Prescott to throw the ball to. So right here, pick 11, I'm going to pass on the running back, knowing that Dallas can get another one in round 2, round 3, round 4 that can come in, contribute, and potentially start right out the gate. Putting Luther Burden on the same offense with CeeDee Lamb is just going to cause more problems for defenders and give Dak Prescott another option to get the ball to. So Luther Burden, you are a Dallas Cowboy at pick 11. Pick 12, the Chicago Bears are on the clock. You got to protect Caleb, who's played very well in the game last week against the Minnesota Vikings. Big bounce back performance for Caleb Williams. 300 yards, led the team in rushing. Let's get him some offensive line help. Let's continue to improve things for the Chicago Bears. And Ariante Irsay out of Minnesota makes a ton of sense. This is a big, physical player, 6'6", 330 pounds. They drafted Darnell Wright out of Tennessee couple of years ago. Let's continue to build around that offensive front and make sure Caleb Williams has time to throw the ball. Ariante Irsay out of Minnesota, number 12 to the Minnesota Vikings. The Colts are on the clock. Tight end, linebacker, and safety are the primary needs for the Indianapolis Colts. And this is just going to be an automatic pick for me. Whether it's Colston Loveland as your tight end one, Tyler Warren, Mason Taylor, Gunnar Helm, Harold Fannin Jr., this class is loaded at the tight end position. And if Anthony Richardson continues to show Indianapolis enough to at least give them some confidence to go into next season as sort of that prove-it year for A-Rich, get him some help. The only people, the only outlets, it's Downs, it's Pittman, you're praying it's Adnan Mitchell. Get them an easy target. Get them an option that they can get the ball to underneath. He can make things easy for Anthony Richardson, and I believe the tight end position does that. Tyler Warren is my number one tight end in this class. On the season, 910 yards, 75 receptions, 5 touchdowns, and they play him a little bit in that wildcat role as well. This is a big target. Anthony Richardson, what do we know? Not the most accurate quarterback. Give him a big-ass target. 6'6", 260 pounds. He can play in line with his hand in the dirt, and you can split him in that flex Y position. I think this would be a fantastic pick. It kind of reminds me of what the Raiders did last year by drafting Brock Bowers. Even if Anthony Richardson is not the quarterback of the future, having this young, big-bodied, dynamic pass catcher on this offense is going to make life easy for whatever quarterback is operating under center for the Indianapolis Colts. So Tyler Warren, pick 13 to the Colts. We are down to the Miami Dolphins at pick 14. Miami, offensive line, cornerback help. They can use quite a bit. Let's take a look at the DBs. We have not looked at the cornerback position. Ben Morrison, Trey Amos, Javon Revel right at the top. We're not going to take a cornerback here for Miami because there are still some quality offensive tackles on the board. Josh Simmons out of Ohio State fits the mold, 6'5", 310 pounds. Potentially they can kick him in at guard if need be, but I love Wyatt Mullum. He has been great. And you look at his stats at 6'6", 317, 0 sacks given up in his entire career of starting, only 1 quarterback hit. He's only given up 6 hurries this season. This is where we're going. Wyatt Mullum out of West Virginia. You are a Miami Dolphin at pick 14. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are now on the clock at pick 15. PFF, tight end, edge, cornerback being the biggest positions of need. I'd also throw wide receiver in, but not in round 1. You've got to find a plan just in case. Chris Godwin's not all the way back. Doesn't look like Raheem Jarrett or Jalen McMillan are going to fill that role. But Big Mike is back. I like the way Cade Otton is playing, so I'm not going to pencil in a tight end as a position of need for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I do think defensive back is Ben Morrison, big cornerback out of Notre Dame. I think he would fit nicely in this defense. Todd Bowles knows how to run a defense. They need cornerback help. Benjamin Morrison, you are a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, pick 15 for out of Notre Dame. We're at pick 16. The LA Rams are on the clock. Listen, we saw the Rams on Sunday Night Football just get destroyed. Just get destroyed by Saquon Barkley. Almost 300 damn rushing yards alone by Saquon in that matchup, really signifying the need that they need to continue to upgrade that defense. You see linebacker, cornerback, and tackle positions of need. They paid for Jonah Jackson and a couple of cats on the offensive line last year. You need to get a linebacker. And while I'm not a big advocate of drafting one extremely high, Jalen Walker fits the build of the type of linebacker that you would draft out of Georgia. The lineage and the history of the Roquan Smiths and the Kobe Deans, they have quality linebackers at Georgia. Jalen Walker's a stud, absolute stud. Instant upgrade, plug-and-play starting linebacker for the Rams, helping this defense and those defensive front. You have more impact by having somebody at that second level that can actually influence and impact the defense. Jalen Walker, pick 16, linebacker out of Georgia to the LA Rams. The San Francisco 49ers are on the clock at pick 17. PFF says they need a guard, a tackle, and a cornerback. Go get your offensive line help. Trent Williams is a future first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt about it, but he's long in the tooth. They've got to continue to protect Brock Purdy. This offense is a timing-based offense. You've got to have guys to hold up and protect your quarterback. Josh Simmons out of Ohio State, tackle. San Francisco 49ers at pick 17. The Arizona Cardinals are on the clock at pick 18. Bad loss against the Seattle Seahawks. They could not protect Kyler Murray, could not move the ball, couldn't run the ball. didn't allow them to get anything going on the outside to develop to the wide receivers. Trey McBride had a big game, but there's still very, very big issues up front for the Arizona Cardinals. Defensively, they've got issues as well. But offensive tackle is still very nice. Cam Williams out of Texas, right here at pick 22, would make a lot of sense for the Arizona Cardinals, who have invested in offensive line. Got Paris Johnson out of Ohio State. Continue to build around your quarterback. You've got a nice running back tandem in James Conner, Trey Benson. You've got to give Kyler Murray time. Open up some holes. Cam Williams, Texas has two guys that can get after, that can protect the quarterback, Cam Williams and Kelvin Banks, who was drafted inside the top 10. We're at pick 19. The Atlanta Falcons are on the clock. Defense, defense, defense. That's what Atlanta needs. They need somebody to get after the quarterback. No sacks in Atlanta. None, ever. They can't get after the damn quarterback. Go get a dynamic edge rusher. And boy, oh boy, Mykel Williams is still on the clock. Let's see, still on the block. Shamar Stewart is still out there. James Pierce out of Tennessee. I don't know how. I don't know how James Pierce is ranked so low according to PFF. But the Atlanta Falcons, they stay home. Mykel Williams out of Georgia hasn't played a full complement of games. Played in 9 games this year. He's got 3 sacks, 10 hurries, 6'5", 265 pounds. Atlanta's going to have more information on him than anybody. They need edge rusher help. There are some damn good ones still on the board. They get Mykel Williams out of Georgia. The Seattle Seahawks are on the clock at pick 20, and PFF says they need interior offensive line help. They need a tackle, and they need a linebacker. Looking at the tackles, you got Greg Zabel out of North Dakota State. You have Arizona's got a tackle, William and Mary, Blake Miller out of Clemson. Oregon's got a couple of tackles. Let's take a look at the linebacker position. Let's go to linebackers and see what's popping there. Are there any linebackers worthy of taking right here? Jaheed Campbell. A lot of people talking about that kid out of Alabama. He's a physical freak. Right now, 78 tackles and only 6 missed tackles, 6'3", 244 pounds. I think this is a spot for the Seahawks. BPA. Let's look at best player available. Seahawks on the board. You've got Malachi Starks. You can always use a safety. The Seahawks could use that. You've got Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Tight end Colston Loveland. Got some receivers. Interior defensive line out of Michigan, Kenneth Grant. They did draft Byron Murphy out of Texas, interior defensive line a year ago, who's been really damn good. But Shamar Stewart right here on the edge out of Texas A&M, big kid, 6'6", he's a freak. He looks very talented. And with Mike McDonald man in the defense, I think right here, this is a spot where that edge outside player, Shamar Stewart, could fit that Seattle Seahawks defense. I'm not going to give him a guard this high right now. So let's go with the talent. Let's go with the upside. Let's go with BPA. Let's put Shamar Stewart next to Byron Murphy in Seattle at pick 20. Pick 21, the Washington Commanders are on the clock, getting after the quarterback, protecting Jaden Daniels. They did trade for a cornerback and Marshawn Lattimore prior to the deadline, but let's protect Jaden Daniels. Let's give him as much time as possible. Greg Zabel out of North Dakota State. You are a Washington Commander at pick 21. Pick 22, the Houston Texans are on the clock. Guard, defensive line play, and a running back. And while it would seem like fun to add Ashton Jeanty to an offense that has Nico Collins and C.J. Stroud, just doesn't make a lot of football sense for the Houston Texans, seeing how many needs they have. The interior of their defensive front, Kenneth Grant or Talik Williams out of Ohio State. Really like Talik Williams. This kid right here, 6'3", 327 pounds. Kenneth Grant, another big interior defensive lineman, 6'3", 240 pounds. Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, like the interior defensive line guys in this class. You got Dayon Walker out of Kentucky as well. This big boy is big and athletic. 4 sacks on the season for the 6'6", 345-pound interior defensive tackle. Like, this class is nice at that position. Because of that, I just want to take a look one more time at the wide receivers for the Houston Texans, knowing that Stephon Diggs, ACL, is he going to be ready for the start of the season? And at his age, is there any sign of slowing down? Emeka Egbuka, Isaiah Bond. I don't believe that wide receiver out of Stanford is going to declare this year. You got Restrepo, Kyron Lacy, and Trey Harris as well. This is one we are going to give him the best available interior defensive lineman, Kenneth Grant. Let's help out Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter on the edge. Getting a big space player, space eater inside, to free things up for those edge rushers could be very good for D'Amico Ryans in this defense. Kenneth Grant, you are a Houston Texan, which makes this pick for the Denver Broncos oh so easy for me. Bo Nix is balling out. He's playing well. They just released Greg Dulcich, a former, I believe, third-round pick out of UCLA. The one position that they don't have, tight end. And I don't give a damn if it's Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland. Both of these would be great upgrades for Bo Nix. Colston Loveland, many people's tight end one. I've got him a hair below Tyler Warren. Doesn't matter. He's a stud. Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren makes a lot of sense for the Denver Broncos and for Bo Nix. Love the pick. Favorite pick so far, Colston Loveland, 23 to the Denver Broncos. At pick 24, the Baltimore Ravens are on the clock. They need a guard. They need a tackle. And we saw last night they might need a little bit of cornerback help as well, and they've got a damn good one in this class. A couple of good ones. Trey Amos, Siobhan Revel, Jihad Barron. Like, this is a good cornerback class. Maybe it doesn't look elite and high-end outside of the Will Johnsons and Travis Hunters, but this is a very deep defensive back class. And for a defense that has a league-worst pass defense, I think Baltimore is going to opt for the defensive back position. Now, they've got an all-pro in Kyle Hamilton, big safety. He's physical. He can play in the box. Ravens fans, how would you think about pairing up Kyle Hamilton with, in my opinion, a player who should be picked much higher in Malachi Starks? You can have your sort of your Ed Reed and your strong safety there. This could look sort of like Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor did in Seattle. I think he's an instant upgrade to this defense. Best player available. While I would love to take Trey Amos or Siobhan Revel out of East Carolina, the ability and the chance to pick up Malachi Starks here at pick 24, it just seems too good to pass up. Malachi Starks on the Baltimore Ravens would be a steal. I don't care how you want to pair him and Kyle Hamilton. He instantly makes his pass defense better. Love this pick of Starks to the Ravens, which leads the Los Angeles Chargers on the clock here at pick 25. And watching last night, I'm like, oh yeah, give them a tight end for Justin Herbert, another wide receiver. This seems like a spot, especially with J.K. Dobbins' injury. And I don't know what that is at the time I'm recording this. They said it was a knee injury. We know he's dealt with quite a few lower body injuries throughout his career. Jim Harbaugh, they want to establish it. They drafted an offensive tackle last year. He's probably going to be quite aggressive in the offseason again, but he can't go into next year with Gus Edwards as the running back. Right here at pick 25 would feel like a big-time luxury pick, but Ashton Jeanty being on the board, pairing him up with Jim Harbaugh in this LA run-centric offense, this could be scary. This could be scary. The Chargers are already a fringe playoff team. This is a significant upgrade over anybody in that backfield right now. So while not a big advocate of a running back in round one, at this spot at pick 25 to get the best damn running back in this class, it makes sense for the Los Angeles Chargers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock at pick 26, and I talked about them last draft video needing another wide receiver. Calvin Austin has played well. George Pickens playing well, but get some more pass catchers around Russell Wilson. It can't be this Van Jefferson. I like what Calvin Austin can do, but let's get another receiver that can help move this offense down the field and score points. They get to the red zone, but they are not converting. Emeka Egbuka is on the board, is on the clock, and I do believe he would be a great Steeler fit pick, dirty lunch pail kind of wide receiver, power slot, reminds me a lot of Rashee Rice. So if you've got George Pickens and Calvin Austin as your field stretcher, downfield options, Emeka Egbuka in this offense can work underneath in tandem with Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. The fit of this wide receiver in this offense, it makes a lot of sense. Emeka Egbuka, 26 overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. 27, the Green Bay Packers are on the clock. Tackle, defensive line, and defensive back help are what the Green Bay Packers need. I like Evan Williams, young safety for the Green Bay Packers. You've got Jair Alexander out there, but they do need another cornerback opposite Jair Alexander. I like Keyshawn Nixon, much better kick returner than he is defensive back. Right here, Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. If you guys don't know Trey Amos, 6'1", 190-pound cornerback out of Ole Miss on the season. He's got 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns on the season, and a 54.7% passer rating, which is significantly lower than the 77.3 in which he posted last season in 11 games. This is a very good cornerback. So adding defensive back help right here for the Green Bay Packers next to Jair Alexander and Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney out there at safety. There you go, Green Bay improving the defense. Minnesota on the clock at pick 28 in the last mock. Ashton Genty, you were a Minnesota Viking, but he went few picks earlier. I still think that would be a great spot for him to go. But the Vikings, defensive back help. You want to blitz like crazy. One of the things that they have been susceptible to is being beat over the top because they blitz so much. So Siobhan Revel out of East Carolina helps fix that. Very good cornerback prospect to Minnesota at pick 28. Philadelphia Eagles on the clock at pick 29. Continue to run the ball. Can we find more offensive line help for Jalen Hurts? Can we find more O-line help for Saquon Barkley? They're in a good spot there. They're in a good spot offensive line-wise, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, along with the Detroit Lions. So how do we improve the defensive side of the ball? Edge rusher, linebacker, all positions of need, and we're going back to one of the players that I do not believe should fall this far. And if Philly is able to replace Brandon Graham, to add to this defensive line rotation that already has Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and now you add one of the best disruptive defensive ends in college football, James Pierce, 6'5", 245 pounds off of the edge. Howie does it again. James Pierce to Philadelphia. Howie does it again. What a pick. What a fit. And it is officially scary season for any offensive front having to deal with that interior core of Davis, of Carter, and of James Pierce at pick 29. Pick 30, the Buffalo Bills on the clock, and they are just sad. They are sad to see James Pierce come off of the board. They need interior D-line help. They need linebacker help, according to PFF. And have no fear, there are plenty of defensive linemen still on the board. And Talik Williams out of Ohio State, boom, there it is. Buffalo Bills get a top 25 player according to PFF here at pick 30. And that leaves the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions on the clock, pick 31 and pick 32. What do the Chiefs need? Tackle, tight end, running back, Detroit Lions right after them. This is an interesting spot for Kansas City because Travis Kelce is getting older. Kelce is getting older. Pacheco a little bit banged up. They've played this game before trying to find a replacement for Kareem Hunt. That didn't work out. They tried to replace Tyreek Hill. That too did not work out. Now, they should have Rashee Rice back next year. I'm not sure what's going on with all the legalese of his situation. Noah Gray, 2 touchdowns last week. Again, not an advocate of drafting a running back this high in the first round. But the caliber of running back, though, that Omarion Hampton is, and I want you to look at this. Past 2 seasons, last year's true sophomore, 88.7 grade, 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns on 29 receptions. This season, through 11 games, almost 1,500 yards, 1,475, 14 rushing TDs, 34 receptions, and almost 300 receiving yards. Hampton, 6'1", 220 pounds. He is, Ashton Genty is incredible, but Omarion Hampton, his skill set, he's second to nobody. He is incredible, top 30 player according to PFF. And for this mock, and not as the starter, he's not coming in to replace Isaiah Pacheco. But if you're Kansas City, I just don't know if Pacheco's the type of running back that you want to give a big contract to. It's a business. He's great. I love what he brings to this team. But if you could replace him with a younger option that can step in and play in tandem with him, you don't have to wear Pacheco out. I think that would serve Patrick Mahomes and company very well. So Omarion Hampton, my RB2 in this class. Come on down. You are Kansas City Chief at pick 31. And pick 32, Detroit's on the clock. Center, guard, edge rusher needed from the Lions. In this scenario, will have just won the Super Bowl. So let's take a look at the edge rushers that are still on the board. You've got LT Overton out of Alabama, Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, Ohio State, JT and Jack Sawyer are available. Kyle Kennard, freak sort of athlete out of South Carolina. Quite a few edge rushers available. Centers and interior offensive line, I don't know what that's looking like at this point. Let's go to the interior offensive line. No, you've got the kid out of Georgia there as well. Tyler Booker out of Alabama, good player. Tate Ratledge, Donovan Jackson. It's kind of high to take a guard or a center at this point. So let's go BPA and see who's still on the board for the Detroit Lions. Isaiah Bond, you got running back Caleb Johnson. We know they don't need any running backs with Sonic and Knuckles in place there. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Landon Jackson, edge rusher from Arkansas. Big boy, Landon Jackson. He is. He's 6'7", 280 pounds. I think this would be the smart play with the uncertainty on Hutchinson, when he's going to come back, how he's going to respond to that devastating leg injury that he suffered, making sure that you've got bodies and options. They did bring in Zadarius Smith, which should help out. But this defense has been freaking awesome over the past 8 weeks. Since week 8 of the NFL, they boast a top 5 defense on just about every advanced metric that you can look at. But let's continue to make sure that these guys can do what they need to do without Aiden Hutchinson if he starts out next year a little slow. So Landon Jackson, big edge rusher out of Arkansas. You are a Detroit Lion at pick 32. And that wraps up this mock. So let's get this thing graded and take a look at what the final board looks like. So let's go through this round 1 mock. Travis Hunter went number 1 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars, followed by Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami, to the Giants. Shedeur Sanders goes to the Raiders at 3. Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, to New England at 4. Teteroa McMillan, the big wide receiver out of Arizona, goes 5 overall to the Carolina Panthers. At number 6, Will Campbell going to protect Will Levis out of LSU to Tennessee. The Jets take Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State. Cleveland opts for offensive line help with Kelvin Banks out of Texas. Mason Graham, D-tackle, goes to the Saints at pick 9. Nick Scoutron out of A&M, the edge rusher, goes to Cincinnati at 10. The Dallas Cowboys select Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri, at pick 11. Ariante Irsay out of Minnesota, the tackle, goes 12th overall to protect Caleb Williams. Tyler Warren, the big tight end out of Penn State, 13 to the Colts. Wyatt Millam, tackle out of West Virginia, to the Dolphins at 14. Ben Morrison, corner Notre Dame, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 15. And Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia, goes 16 to the L.A. Rams. At 17, the 49ers get some help on their offensive line with Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Cameron Williams goes to the Arizona Cardinals, tackle out of Texas. Michael Williams, edge rusher out of Georgia, goes to the Atlanta Falcons at 19. Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher out of A&M, goes to Seattle at pick 20. Greg Zabel, tackle out of North Dakota State, goes to the Commanders at 21. Kenneth Grant and Colston Loveland go back-to-back, the 2 Michigan kids. Kenneth Grant to the Houston Texans at 22, and Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan, goes to Denver at 23. Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia, falls to the Ravens at 24. Ashton Jeanty, RB1 on everybody's board, goes to the Chargers at 25. Emeka Egbuka, 26 overall, to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Trey Amos, cornerback out of Ole Miss, goes to Green Bay at 27. Siobhan Revel, cornerback out of East Carolina, goes 28 to the Minnesota Vikings. James Pierce falls to the Philadelphia Eagles at pick 29, the edge rusher out of Tennessee. Talik Williams, defensive lineman out of Ohio State, to the Buffalo Bills at 30. Omarion Hampton, we got 2 running backs in round 1 going to the Kansas City Chiefs at 31. And Landon Jackson, the edge rusher out of Arkansas, goes to the Detroit Lions at pick 32. That is round 1 following week 12 of NFL action. Appreciate y'all pulling up to this mock. We're going to do this every single week. And as we progress through the season and things start to really shape up with who's back, who's out, we'll start to add some trades to this to make it interesting. But right now, this is where the teams are picking heading into week 13. Here are my thoughts and opinions about what could help these teams improve in 2025. Hit me below in the comments. Let me know what you like, what you hated, but most importantly, if you stuck around to the end of the video and you found the information actionable and or entertaining, help a young independent content creator grow by hitting that subscribe button, hitting that thumbs up button, so YouTube could recommend this in the algorithm to other people who are looking for NFL draft content. Appreciate you pulling up. Appreciate you tapping in. And until next week, y'all have a good one. Enjoy Thanksgiving with family and friends. I'm out of this thing. Peace.